Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of the No Fluff MSP Marketing Podcast. Today, we're talking vertical marketing for MSPs. So I have Dan with me. Dan, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Hey, I really appreciate the opportunity to spend this time with you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate it. Dan was in a peer. We were in a peer group together, and I remember the first time I met Dan, I was like, "Dude, your voice is amazing." I was like, "You have like this amazing like voice." I was like, and then late recently I was like, I really want to do something like vertical marketing because like a lot of members are asking. I'm just intrigued with it. And I was like, wait a minute, Dan would be perfect. He's got a podcast voice and he does this. So I just appreciate you kind of jumping on. We'll kind of start with introductions. You want to kind of introduce yourself, how you got into the MSP space? Anything just to start off?
Sure. So yeah, no, as you said, I'm Dan DeSteno. I am the founder and managing member of Nova Computer Solutions. We are a dental-specific technology provider based out of just outside of DC, Northern Virginia. And I started the company this March 1st will be 23 years. So it was March 1st of 2000. And I started us pretty much as a dental specific technology provider just by a couple of the roads that I went down, and it's been a really fun ride, transitioning from a kind of a break fix, learning tools or adapting and bringing on tools to help us become more of a managed service provider, and then to where all of us are today with all the different tools and being able to do so much, being so remote
Yeah.
compared to what it used to be.
Tools overload. That's one thing I've learned being an MSP. It's just so many tools. And it's like just getting like just knowing 20% of every tool. It's like, how do we get to that 50, 60, 70, 80%? So that could be a whole nother podcast. Maybe I should get you back on because lately I've been trying to like look at the tools we have, like ScalePad and all these other ones. Like, all right, how do I get the most out of this? So that's so interesting because like vertical specific, everyone's like afraid of, and they're like, oh, it's it pigeonholes me or it narrows my perspective, blah blah blah. But at the same time, it's massively opportunistic. I mean, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how you picked it and how you go about marketing it. But like just from my perspective, one thing I preach all the time is knowing your marketing persona. Like before you do a campaign, before you do anything, like who are you targeting? That's why MSP Camp has been so easy because the marketing persona is me, right? And it's like, cool, what do I want? How do I talk to me? It makes it extremely easy creating campaigns and being able to communicate with myself. And it's super hard when an MSP targets every vertical because it's like, well, how do you know how to talk to every vertical? It's impossible. So they end up having a blanket approach or communication to all these different verticals. And MSP Camp's actually moving into vertical specific campaigns next. And one of the things I'm doing, just a tip to any MSP out there, is I'm going to be going just like I do on MSP forums, where I'm on Reddit, I'm on Facebook, on all these forums. You hear what MSPs care about, and that's what I create and really talk to. I'm going to do the same thing when we do the legal vertical. I'm going to be all over the legal over the legal forums. I'm just going to spend a week, 2 weeks in there listening to them, really like this is what these people care about. We're not assuming what they care about, we're hearing what they care about. And so it's a huge advantage. And so getting back to you and your dental specific vertical, like I know you mentioned it kind of happened by accident, but how did you get into dental specific? How did you kind of refine your messaging? Like why did you choose that and go so hard in that direction?
That's it's a kind of interesting story. Uh, in a previous life, I was in the Air Force, and I was lucky enough to get stationed over at Bolling Air Force Base. And if anybody knows Bolling Air Force Base, it's this tiny little Air Force base. It doesn't have a flight line or anything like that in Southeast DC. And I was stationed and assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency, and that's their main headquarters, and they have a component in the Pentagon and some other locations. And so I was accepted, and I was brought in as a senior systems administrator. And I was on a team of 5 or 6 other techs that we managed the servers for DIA and their component in the Pentagon, and again, in some other locations. And it was great. I loved it. They sent me to schools. But I was in the Air Force, but you were really part of a direct reporting unit. And so you worked pretty much with a bunch of civilians, and it was a great job. And they sent me to a bunch of schools to get certifications and learn more about tech. And my enlistment was coming up, and the government wanted to send me to Korea for 2 years unaccompanied, and I just didn't want to go. My wife and I were trying to start a family, and I knew that if I was there and she was here, it just wouldn't have worked out as well. And so I said, hey, I'll do anything. I'll go extended long to Italy, Germany, England, anywhere. I'll re-enlist today. I just don't want to go to Korea. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, this is where you're going. And right at the same time, my wife's employer, he was a dentist. He was having some problems with his computers. And I went in, and it was a small little network, 6, 7 computers, and a little server 2000 or whatever it was, and fixed his computers. And he installed had a digital pan that he had bought at the same time, and got him connected and networked up. And he said, "Oh, you need to call on Dr. Ryan in Annandale." And so I called on Dr. Ryan, and I helped him out. And at the same time, I really did a market analysis, looked around at any other IT company that works in that dental space. I reached out to different dental supply companies, local reps, if somebody talks to you about computers, what do you do? And a lot of those folks at that time, they were selling computers themselves, the dental companies. And I found that there were just a couple of more dental medical specific technology providers back there. And most of those have gone to the wayside by now. But I left the government, and I had left that guaranteed paycheck, guaranteed, 30 days of leave a year, and all of those guarantees in the community. And I started Nova just based on a belief that if you go down this specific road and really learn everything about them, then you're going to be just as valuable as any other specialist in any other field.
Yeah.
And so it really was a thought of, we can immerse ourselves in the oral healthcare vertical, and not just computers, but your digital x-ray systems, or your intraoral cameras, your extraoral cameras. There's a whole bunch of photos that orthodontists take to ensure and to get the bite correct. Mm-hmm. And so learning about those 27 different shots. And so when I'm in front of a dentist, I could talk about whatever it may be, quadrant dentistry, or how the computer is going to take the best cone beam image, or how integrating this phone solution into your practice management systems can create efficiencies to fill the holes in your schedule. Really immersing yourself just allows you to have that. If we were working in that legal space, and we had some automotive dealerships, and a couple of veterinary clinics, and some dentists, and the Tires Plus, all of those, we're trying to be everything to all of them, and we're not going to know the compliance that the legal field requires compared to what the medical field requires, compared to what the financial sector requires. So it really was a focused approach, and now you can focus on specific study clubs. You're not worried about a study club or a peer group for an automotive distribution solution or something like that, or legal professionals. Now we focus on our dental clubs and our dental associations, and you can just build a lot more of those relationships. And so that's really what we found, and it has paid off. And it's paid off in a couple of ways. If you were a dentist, a general dentist, that's great. You can do a lot of general things. But an orthodontist or an oral surgeon, that's the specialist that is referred a lot of patients from those general dentists. They can, in a lot of ways, charge more of a premium because they are the specialist. And because we have 97+% of our partner base is one way, shape, or form a dentist, we have that ability as well because we bring just the years and years and years of dental specific
Yep.
knowledge to every situation. And again, it's not just your computer, it's how does the provider, uh, how does the flow of the patient work in the practice from the time they engage the practice from the first time to the time they sign for the treatment plan
Yep.
and you provide that treatment. What is the flow of the patient and how does the digital experience impact them in different aspects of the flow through the practice?
Yeah.
We're talking about ergonomics on where mounts are, and the flow of how they want that patient experience to be. And I just don't think you can do that when I've got to leave here and I've got to run over to the attorney's office and work on his setup.
Yep.
And then go to something else. But you could really, when you focus on that vertical, you could really get down in there deep.
That is such a beautiful overview of the benefits of going vertical. Like that was gold, Dan. Like I really appreciate you sharing that. And just some real life examples of this, challenges that Alltech face by being that. I mean, it's worked for us just because of volume, right? Like we've got like 150 clients, we're at 4 million. So it's like it's a good business, but we just lost a client, an auto dealer, because they're going with an auto dealer specific MSP that knows all about these FTC guidelines. Sure, we know about them, but do we know it as well as this other MSP? Zero chance, because they specialize in auto. And now that company's paying 3 times as much than they were paying us. And they were paying us a good amount to go work with that company because they were specialists. And that's what really got me thinking, like, I need to learn more about vertical. And what's great, and another one is we've lost a lot of prospects when we were in that sales meeting with the prospect and they went with that accounting specific technology group. That's a countrywide MSP. They're not even local. Like oftentimes local is a huge benefit. They want a local provider, but when it comes to specialty and vertical specific, they don't care. They actually want that. It may not be a big MSP, but they don't care where they are if they specialize in their industry. And those are challenges that I face. That how do I go up against that? I can't. I really can't. I mean, I've won sales meetings where they've been going up against vertical specific, but they have a huge leg up and they can charge more. And the industry knows them and wants to work with them because they're referred by all their people. Because it's like you said, like I know where to find my MSPs that I'm targeting. You know where to find your dentist. You know what trade shows they go to. You know what magazines they read. You know all about your person because that's all you're talking to. Like, what a massive advantage. So what are some disadvantages of going vertical specific? Like, is there anything that you're like, well, this is a bit of a challenge, but it's worth it because of the premium I could charge and because of the industry knowledge, et cetera?
Well, I think there could be disadvantages depending on your geographic location. So I don't know that if you're in a small, 50,000 person town and there are 25 dentists is going that route the best way. So that is one area. It does take time. It takes time to be confident and really feel like you understand what the position that the partner that you're trying to work with is in. And it just took time for us to get that. There was a lot of areas where you just didn't realize what was around that corner. But that was all the part of this as well.
Yeah.
I don't mean to kind of blow your this question off, but I'm gonna switch it and say 2 positives.
Yeah, please.
So during COVID, we were pretty isolated or insulated, I should say, from being affected. We were working with professionals.
Yeah.
Those professionals understood that they still had a requirement, whether it was compliance. They understand that at the end of the day, when we go back into the office, whenever that may be, when in the beginning of April of 2020, we still need to have everything taken care of.
Yeah.
So there was that really nice aspect of it because you're working with other professional organizations.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned peer groups. We're involved in a dental specific technology peer group
Oh, cool.
and it's about 25 companies from around the country that focus in the oral healthcare vertical. And
Wow.
so as we bring on partners across the country, much to what you were saying, hey, they're working with a national based IT provider. We work with a bunch of different practices, from Maine to Florida, out moving to Tennessee, but we only service the Mid Atlantic. From a physical standpoint, our partners in that other peer group are our boots on the ground, and they're
Wow.
dental specific. So that has allowed us to expand our footprint because we're working with other like-minded MSPs that
Yeah.
are focused on the same thing. Uh, we work with a couple of other IT companies that have partners in the DC metro area that were their boots on the ground.
Yep. That's
And
awesome.
and so then you're able to build your peer group that way,
Yep.
which is invaluable when you run across this one situation that you've never encountered before.
Yep.
You've got 25 other companies that you can reach out to and say, hey, has anybody ever seen this?
Mm-hmm. That's
And
huge. Yeah, that's in our peer group. We have, like a lot of the previous peer group we're in, we're still in a peer group together and we do the same thing. But it's cool that y'all are all vertical specific. That helps so much more because then you're all keeping up with the changes and legislation. You are anyway, but like there's going to be someone in the peer group that might be a little bit ahead and you can get information on that. So when I think of like the future of MSP, which I think about a lot, which is weird because I'm just the sales guy, but it's always like, well, how do I sell it? Right? How do I improve? Like a lot of all tech's improvement over the years has been me pushing hard. Right. I'm not saying I've made this massive impact, but it's like, hey, we have to be doing business premium. We have to get our handle on that. We have to figure out how to organize it. We have to figure out how to implement it. We got to figure out how to make money on it because that's where we're moving. We're moving away from servers. And some people don't want that big monthly cost of cloud servers. So like there's been so much where it's been me kind of pushing hard because I need to be able to sell. And if it's that we just support technology, we're going to be like every other MSP. And so, it's always finding that differentiator. And I think of where a lot of MSPs are today, a ton of them. It's we support your technology. They say proactive, right? They say, oh, we're super proactive. Cool. You have an RMM agent. Awesome. But what the future holds is applying that technology to the business. And it's every MSP says they do that. They all do that. They all say that. But when I'm taking over from a MSP that didn't do a good job, they're just supporting hardware. They're doing a backup. They're supporting hardware. They're taking help desk tickets. That stuff's going to go by the wayside for MSPs like you who can come in and say, oh, you have this system. This is how you can incorporate that system outside of backups and server and help desk. That's how you can incorporate this system to improve your patient flow, which is going to make you more money. That is the next level of MSP. I know there's a lot of MSPs there, but most of them are not. And I just see it. And we are moving into that too. How do we not only sell Microsoft 365, but how do we apply all those applications that come with the business premium subscription to improve every department at your business? That's where we're moving into. And it's like what you can charge for that is insane compared to what you can charge for a server migration. Server migration, cool, $150 an hour, maybe $200 an hour if you're lucky. For applying Microsoft 365 to improve the efficiency of an organization, $300, $400 an hour, right? It's a massive difference because that's the stuff the business owners care about. They don't care about what their computer is doing. They don't care. They just want it to run. But if they do care about the inefficiencies in their department. And so knowing this so well, like, wow, what a leg up you have. And, not really question there. I just love that you've taken that approach and it's worked well for you.
I think as our partners look at us as an MSP, at the end of the day, they're spending a lot of money with us.
Yep.
Spending a lot, and what can we give back to them? And so part of our focus now is when we do our QBRs, it's what value, how can we help them generate revenue? And so is it, we talk about even new services where there's a new service that can fill your patient schedule when you have holes and a new patient can actually make an appointment right through Yelp. And so
cool.
We're starting to talk about this new service, which most of our clients haven't heard anything about this yet.
Yep.
But because we want to bring as much value, not only to, for what we're doing, but just as additional value so that our clients look at us and they really do feel like we're a partner in their success.
Yes. True consultation. I did a
Absolutely.
podcast recently where it was like finding your differentiator. And it was like, we don't do that out of our vocabulary. We don't do that, should not even be said until we thoroughly look at what was it? Why did the prospect or client ask that question? Instead of saying we don't do it. Well, we don't do websites. No, we don't do looking at software like Yelp and how that would integrate in the patients. We don't do that. That should never be said before we really look at why do they care about this? And how is there a way that we can easily implement this into what we do? Because that's going to be a differentiator. And it's just thinking that way first. People love saying we don't do that because it's another thing that they're going to have to build processes on and learn. It's like, well, we're already, as an MSP, we are already learning probably more than any industry. I mean, I couldn't even think of another industry where it's more learning than the MSP industry. There's so much coming down the pipeline all the time. So it's like, what's another tool? I mean, we got thousands of tools anyways. And if it could really, you can apply it to improve the business, to help for prospecting and help your clients, that's going to be so sticky. Like we don't do websites, right? But sorry, go ahead, Dan. What are you going to say?
But when you're vertically focused,
Yeah.
you're not going to say we don't do that as much
Nice. Yes.
because you are going to, because you're
Yes.
going to immerse yourself into every aspect of that. And so there's another area.
And what's your retention like? Like what's your client retention?
It's really pretty good. Where we see the most attrition is through DSOs, which are dental service organizations that come in and buy a practice.
Yeah.
So we see there, and we see it from retiring dentists. That's the vast majority of any attrition that we have.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I could never see a dentist working with you, someone that really truly understands their businesses, doing a sales meeting with another MSP. They ask one dental specific question at MSP. The MSP is gonna be, well, yes, we protect those systems. It's like, okay, but can you like help support it? And they're like, vendor management. You know, like
Yeah, no, it's not the same thing. Yeah,
oh,
not
not
at
even
all.
close.
And that is a very powerful a tool. We're working with a prospect currently that the prospect shared the invoices of the other MSP, and I was just astonished at what they were charging, and they're not dental specific. And so during that first conversation, I can ask 4 or 5 questions, and I can know whether your MSP is dental specific and kind of where you are from a compliance standpoint.
Yep.
And from there, I could then just kind of not attack, but just feed off of those areas and quickly show the value of having somebody like Nova in there compared to, the trunk slammer, from down the street.
For sure. So to those listening right now, because there's a lot of MSPs that say we're healthcare specific, right? And even that is so massive. It's so broad, healthcare. Like there's so many different healthcare options. So if there's an MSP there's all different types of MSPs listening. There's some smaller MSPs who are just getting started, and maybe they're like, okay, I want to go vertical specific. And then there's bigger MSPs that may have the bandwidth to also get a department that's vertical specific even. So if an MSP is asking like, hey, I want to get into vertical specific, Dan, what advice would you give them on, criteria to look for, or, how to choose a vertical that they can target?
So if I were doing this over again, knowing what I know now, but dental wasn't the option, I would probably start to align myself and network with folks that are early on in the career. So if I was a dentist and I just got out of school, I very well may go and work as an associate somewhere. But at some point in time, I want to open my own practice or buy in. And you're going to need to have a financial person there, a banker, a CPA. Mm-hmm. If you're building a practice, there's probably a construction company. Aligning and meeting those folks, because those people will help and make those introductions to their, that new dentist that's buying a practice or is building a practice. And some of our biggest growth was just in the relationships with everyone around, all the services around the dentist, if that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah.
100% that makes sense. And that's exactly like finding center of influences for a company like Altex. It's extremely hard. I just end up giving referrals to the internet, phone, blah, blah, blah. I just give them referrals. They never give me referrals. But we have actually someone in our peer group. They do, or in our previous peer group, they are big in hospitals. And one of the biggest driver of leads is they just found a HIPAA consultant.
Mhm.
And that consultant's going to hospitals all the time. They trust this MSP. They give them so many leads, and those leads are massive. They don't have to do much marketing, right? The only other marketing he does is video tech tips every week. And it's like when you're in a vertical, finding those center of influences, finding those true referral partners where it's like, cool, they can trust you because you're vertical specific. You're not that jack of all trades. And you can trust them because they're, well, one, they're already doing it. They have a nice client base within your vertical, and y'all just trust each other. Like that's another massive, like, I'm like in my head, the more I have the conversation with you, the more I'm like, I got to go vertical specific. Cause this is just like, I mean, it's a gold mine. It's like, you have a path. Is there less clients? Like, is there less, opportunity? Yeah. Maybe in your direct local market, but at the same time, just in your direct local market, there's probably dozens that you could target. Um, that's just
Uh,
great.
Without a doubt from that aspect. But it really doesn't matter. Again, dental, we have some chiropractors on our partner list, and dental. There's a lot of different practice management softwares, but even from the chiropractic space, there's different practice management softwares, but they all have different types of X-ray solutions and how it integrates and how they're utilizing it. And so even we're bringing on more and more chiropractors and learning that more, but that I still look at as an uphill battle in trying to really feel comfortable understanding all the different variables in that specific vertical.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that's I think that's one of the better things about being able to be vertical specific is once you get there, you can look at closely related
Yeah.
verticals.
Yep.
And it also allows you, we're doing more writing for magazines,
Cool.
doing
Yep.
more things like this in the oral healthcare to get our message out,
Yep.
just because I think we've been here for 23 years.
Yep. Yep.
And
Becoming that thought leader, becoming that expert in the ortho space or in the dental space is just massive. We recently had it's just, my mind went racing as soon as this client asked me. They're like, it's a financial advisor for businesses. He's like, hey, can you come speak on cybersecurity to my clients? 100% I'll speak to your business clients on cybersecurity. 100%. And like I talked to Tom Lawrence, who's over at Lawrence Systems, and he's like, what he used to do is he used to go to banks that service businesses, and he would do a quarterly cybersecurity presentation for them. It's like so simple. It's hard for me because I'm not vertical specific, but in your case, it's like, cool, here's all the podcasts that the ortho is listening to. Here's all the communities that the ortho or that your vertical is doing. All I got to do is contact them, become a thought leader. They want to get me on the podcast. They want to share my information because I'm on this vertical. I'm the vertical expert. And it's really that easy. I mean, it's obviously hard to do it, but it's an easy path, right? To understanding how do I market to this vertical. Man, that's awesome. I really hope people listening are like really taking notes and understanding the value of what Dan has done here for his business. So, here's another question. Like, let's say you're about to run a marketing campaign. I'm sure you run a lot of marketing campaigns. What is because the marketing persona so well. That's one of the hardest things with running a campaign is understanding who you're talking to and how to talk to them. To me, that's the hardest part. That's why we always start with who we're targeting and then their specific pain points and opportunities. That is where we always start. So in your case, when you're about to run a campaign with this vertical, what is your process? What does your campaign look like to try and get more clients in the vertical?
So we'll go at it normally one of two ways or a combination of both. We're going to go from an educator standpoint and a story standpoint, a client spotlight.
Yeah.
So currently, we're looking for more multi-site practices, and in the oral surgery or orthodontic side of the house, because oral surgeons and orthodontists, they tend to have multiple practices. And general dentists do as well, but it's not necessarily as common, I think, as some of those specialties. And so we're focused right now in marketing towards them but certainly utilizing some sort of a client spotlight. Here is a multi-site oral surgeon that we were able to come in. They had these pain points. We were able to resolve these for them, and they've you know, increased production by 25% or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
So that's kind of more of our direction. We're certainly trying to do a lot more video, and I am not as studious and as good at doing the video as I really should be. Um, but but I think that has also been a very, very impactful process for us in tying it back to not only a client spotlight, but maybe the client interview, just like this, where
Yep.
I talk to you, doctor, and you tell me about the story about what it was like prior to Nova, and then how we affected change and how life is now. Those have been very, very impactful for us.
It's so impactful. That social proof in video format. Reviews, I preach it more than anything. Get more reviews and all the MSPs in your area, you're going to get more leads. It's really that simple a lot of times. But the video testimonial, we do a lot of these. There's nothing more powerful than hearing someone in your vertical or someone much like you talk about how great this company is. Because it's not the company talking about how great they are. It's that company that looks like you. It's social proof. Even if you don't know that person, you're like, cool, you are me. And I can see myself working with this company now. And if they know the person in the video, which happens a lot for us, boom, we basically close the deal. I mean, it's really that simple. But no, I have to wonder how many MSPs are actually getting video testimonials.
Nothing.
No, maybe 2%, maybe 2%. I mean, there's so little video testimonial out there, so little. Like, I don't know a single one in our direct market that's gotten like good video testimonials. I mean, we have a bunch. So when a client lands on our page, we look super legit. There's a big MSP, massive MSP, like $500 million in funding, something crazy. Their entire homepage, the whole entire homepage is just social proof. That's it. Doesn't even talk about what they do. Just social proof of how they help businesses. And it's like, okay, this big company that is marketing really well, that's what they're doing. Shouldn't we probably move in that direction too? So it's cool that you're taking that, that that's the route you should go.
It also, when you're vertically focused, I think it's easier for the prospect to make a decision. We work with a MSP specific insurance provider.
Nice.
They know our vertical.
Yep.
They understand us. So why wouldn't I want to work with an MSP specific insurance provider? We some of our back office is done by a company that is MSP focused, and that's all they do is the back office side of the house.
Love it.
And just I think really, again, every aspect or every area of not only your business, but of most businesses, there's going to be a specific vertically focused.
So to all the listeners, we just got cut off. Zoom actually cut me off, which is crazy. They're like, oh, you got 2 minutes, and then they let me keep doing it. So, all right, I'm going to have to actually buy Zoom now, which is a bummer, or use Streamway. Anyway, so Dan, you were saying you work with a lot of vendors that are MSP specific. So why wouldn't the prospect have the same mindset?
Exactly. And I would be more comfortable, because I imagine we're spending more working with specific folks that work with our specific vertical, because I know that we certainly charge more than I think some of our non-dental specific competitors out there would, just because we have that knowledge, expertise, and we can talk your language.
100%. Like MSP Camp, we do content for MSPs. We're in MSPs. We use the campaigns ourselves. It's locked by county. It's kind of cool. But one of the things we have on there is a store. And it's like, cool. Do you want an ebook? Do you want social media packs? Do you want etc.? And it's a lot more expensive than if someone were to go to Upwork and get someone to design an ebook for them or an infographic for them. But it's like, good luck going to someone that doesn't know the MSP vertical, asking them to create content for you. Whereas for us, it's going to be a premium, but like I already know exactly how I would build that piece when a member requests it.
Sure.
And they're happy to pay because they're like, yeah, I mean, you guys, obviously I see the quality on MSP Camp, so why don't you guys build it for me? I'm like, we'd be happy to do that. This is stuff we love to do. So it's just more of that, right? And it's like referrals pick up, I'm sure, right? Like when you're in a vertical specific, like you said, just how you got started, you fixed the guy's computer. He's like, oh, you need to go talk to Dr. Blah. And it's like, they have their peers or other dental practice owners, right? And so it's the lead in is so much easier and quicker. Is that kind of what you've seen as well?
Absolutely. It's you have that relationship, or we work a lot with a local non-for-profit dental clinic. They have multiple locations, and we've supported them and managed their IT for 18 or 19 years now. Uh, but they support uh, something. If a patient makes less than, I'm just going to say $20,000 a year, they give them like $40, and it buys them an hour and a half of chair time. And a dentist goes in and they work for an hour and a half and work and improve that patient's oral health care. So just even utilizing and supporting that clinic, so many dentists volunteer at that clinic.
Yeah.
We're there, and we're a huge supporter of those clinics for again 18 or 19 years now, and so that's just been a huge connection.
Yeah.
We talk about it, we support their mission, we love their mission, but it also is a way for us to reach out to more prospects that are volunteering there, or that know about it, or maybe they don't know about it, and now they're going to go volunteer because they want to provide that care to the community as well. Getting involved, getting involved in the community is easier. Mm-hmm. Instead of going to this BNI meeting and this meeting and that meeting and the auto trade show meeting.
Yep.
You go to
fractured.
Absolutely.
We only have so much time. Like when I first started marketing Alltech, I wanted to market all of Florida. That was my goal. I'm going to market all of Florida because look at how much opportunity is in Florida. Mm-hmm. It failed because I don't have much of a marketing budget. I can't talk to all of Florida. I just honed into my city, real city specific, and the whole community knew us. They loved us, and it grew like wildfire because I honed in. I should have done it on a vertical. I think we've done pretty good, but like vertical might have made it easier, but I honed in on where I'm at. And that is what got us to expand so quickly. So many MSPs, especially when they get started, like, I need to broaden my horizon. It's like, no, niche down. Right. Niche down, whether it's your city, whether it's the road you're on. One of my first direct mail pieces is I sent out a direct mail piece that showed the road that my business was on. I sent it to all the businesses in 3-mile radius. And I had a big arrow and I said, we're right here. I was like, we support you remotely, but if you need on site, it would be 35 seconds, right? That was one of my first direct mail pieces. I'm like, I need to stop thinking like this. And I need to start thinking like this, like tight. And that's exactly what you did. And thinking like that, now you can target the whole country. And because you're on a specific vertical. So I love it, Dan. I really do. This has been, everything I was hoping to get out of this conversation. I mean, this is, and to those listeners, people listening, I'm not vertical specific. Do I wish I would have been vertical specific? Yeah. Am I going to move more vertical specific? Yeah, for sure. But if you're listening to this and you are vertical specific, maybe Dan gave you some ideas. Or if you're a new MSP and you're struggling to get new clients, go vertical specific. Go ahead, learn all about it. Create your campaigns about what your marketing persona cares about. Get a really defined list of that vertical, and you are off to the races. You can charge more than those big MSPs that have been around for longer. And it's such a good way to go. I mean, the pros, you get to charge more. Marketing is easier because you know your vertical, you know your marketing persona. There's so many pros. There's so many pros to it. And cons, I think the only con is like imagined. Like the con is like, well, there's less. It's like, is there? There's so many businesses and there's so few MSP specific, so few vertical specific MSPs. So the market seems endless if you take Dan's approach. Dan, is there anything else you wanted to kind of conclude on or wrap up for any of the listeners that might be thinking vertical or have been listening to this?
I guess the only other area where I think you just touched on, which we didn't really, is the support and the customer support you're going to be able to provide your partners, because your technicians know what they're talking about and are much more hands-on in the specific softwares that your partners are working on. Yep. So, for example, we might support 10 different practice management softwares across all of our partner base, but we really know those 10, opposed to, again, whatever the attorneys are using and the healthcare folks and the auto dealerships. and
Yep.
you just really just don't know enough, and
Yep.
you don't have enough of that such valuable time to learn it either.
That's such a good point. Because we really go hard on vendor management because we can't know all the applications. We can't know all the vendors. So we really go hard on vendor management. But the amount of time that wastes, the amount of time it wastes trying to contact these verticals or these applications, these things that we don't know anything about. Whereas if our techs knew all about that vertical, a lot of things they could just do themselves. And that would be so much more efficient and you get to charge more. It's like that's where profit is made. It's not chasing down these vendors. So another great point, Dan. Anything else that you wanted to kind of hit on before we wrap things up?
No, I appreciate this time and you spending it with me.
Yeah.
This was good.
I knew you had a voice for a podcast. I knew I had to get you on one day. And here we are 6 years later and it's finally happening.
Maybe that'll be my third career. I'll get
Yes.
into broadcasting.
Yes. Or we'll just keep you on this one.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, we're going to move to challenge of the week real quick. All right, everybody, your challenge of the week this week. Think about what Dan has said. Think about, could you get into a vertical? Would you get into a vertical? And what vertical would you target and why? So just write that down, start brainstorming, especially if you're a smaller MSP or a larger MSP. Could you get into a vertical now? It's never too late. I'm not saying fire all of your current clients, but you can add a department, you can add people that are vertical specific if you want to move in that direction too. So that's pretty much it. Dan, thanks again for joining me today. It's so good to have you on, and that was really good information.
I appreciate it again. It was great to catch up.
All right. Thanks so much, man.